Hey everybody, welcome to the Press Box. I'm Tariq Spence, filling in for Bill Pucko this week. And of course, bringing back, gotta have Bob Bleier, and good to have you back, my friend.
Awesome to be here. I got a lot to talk about, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of free agency going on. My goodness, everybody's getting a $100 million contract.
I didn't get a $100 million contract. You got a $100 million contract?
I got a $100 million contract. I rejected it because, my morals and ethics.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing you.
What's going on with the Boston Celtics?
Well, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Got the Paul Pierce The Truth vintage Celtics jersey. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, big Paul Pierce guy because he looked like every gym class YMCA hero. The long socks, the headband, he was a little bit pudgy, the jersey was too big. Like, he looked like every guy that played at the Y, but he could actually play.
And that's what's so great about it is you could go play basketball, be like, oh, I don't want that guy. But then next thing you know, he's won 5 games in a row, pick up basketball.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. All right, but there's a lot going on when it comes to free agency. I want to go back a bit. I know a lot of people are like, well, how could you bring up Kirk Cousins? That deal was a long time ago. We're talking $90 million guaranteed, $180 million to Atlanta. What does this mean for you for a guy coming off an Achilles injury?
It's a genius move. His agent must be amazing. I think that, a contract like that trumps most contracts in the NFL. And I think he's proven himself. He's a grinder. He's a fighter. But I don't know if he's worth $100 million.
Oh, I can tell you he's not worth $100 million.
But he got it.
Well, he got it because it might be the weakest free agent quarterback class in the history of the NFL. Listen to your 1, 2, 3s, and this is legitimate consensus. Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, who the Broncos gave $86 million to not have, Sam Darnold. Those are your top 3 free agent quarterbacks right now. I mean, it doesn't help the fact that you have what might be 4 starting caliber quarterbacks taken in the first round of this draft coming up, but I cannot in my life remember fewer quality quarterbacks.
It's limited.
How is it that? I mean, look, Kirk Cousins, you're right. His agent is brilliant. Yeah. He has won the financial game in the NFL, and it's impressive. Part of that is also every time he is up for a deal, he's like the best option, which is insane. Insane.
Well, this is the second $100 million deal. He got it from Minnesota when he went there, and then he does it again. Remember, he's 35 and coming off of a career-ending injury, yet he is the number 1 option. Then you throw up top Baker Mayfield getting his money to stay in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think the thing about the NFL in that position is if you're a cerebral kind of a quarterback and you make good decisions, you don't make a lot of mistakes, I think that weighs heavily on a lot of these front offices. I think that's kind of what's playing into the mix here.
I also want to bring up running backs to a note that, and I'll talk a little bit about this with Saquon Barkley leaving the Giants to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. But at any rate, he was the only running back to actually went up in salary. All the other running backs sort of stayed the same, just got in a brand new system.
Henry went down?
Yeah. And so I guess my question would be now, is that money now leaving running backs and going all in the quarterbacks? And remember, it's one position, 17 games, not including playoffs. I mean, this is a lot on one person to stay healthy and play.
You're speaking of the quarterback.
Yes.
Yes, no, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like when you talk about the amount of yardage you're going to gain as a position player, right? Quarterback is always going to be number 1. Wide receiver is going to be number 2. You now have a fight between tight ends and running backs, right? Your tight ends on the roster and your running backs on the roster. Who's going to be getting more yardage per game? I mean, look, it sucks for running backs, man, because it's a brutal position to play. You bang yourself up bad. You have to be wildly talented to do it. But when it comes to a value on a roster, it's just not there anymore.
Well, the problem is, too, I mean, think about your fantasy team every year. You pick an ace running back, and it's a running back by committee on every NFL team. There's a lot of touches based on, schemes and down and distance. There's a lot of running backs that don't get a lot of touches.
The interesting thing is the Henry deal, you brought it up. I thought it was an interesting deal in the sense that he doesn't have a lot of tread left on his tires, but for Baltimore, we were talking about this off air, these teams basically are going 2 years in, I'm putting everything I can into it. We have to come out with a chip on this one.
Yeah, I think Pat had a good point that, Baltimore is the closest to not getting there. I believe that. They're right there every year in the mix. I think Cincinnati's fading a little bit. Buffalo, we all know what's going on with the Bills and how close they get each and every year. But this is the year. But I think that Baltimore getting that powerhouse running back that downhill runner, not the north and south runner, not the east and west runner. I think that's going to be a critical piece of their puzzle, but the guy's getting paid a ton of money.
If you talk about Henry in the playoffs, that brutal running with Lamar Jackson and his shiftiness, that's scary.
Yeah, but here's the problem. I mean, he was on a Titans roster that couldn't win in the playoffs, right? If the theory is he's going to be your playoff back, well, why wasn't there success when he was playing with Tennessee? I don't understand this move at all. I think it would have been better to pay the guy that you let walk instead of bringing Henry in. You brought up the tread on the tires. He started breaking down last season. Look, I love watching Derrick Henry play. So, like, unless the Bills are involved, I would like to see the guy succeed. But I don't see it. I don't get it.
I do. It takes a lot of pressure off Lamar Jackson. You run that front ball in Baltimore. That's a place I do not want to play, and I don't want to tackle Henry in Baltimore.
If he's there to be tackled.
Well, we'll see. Oh, my goodness. Here we go. So we got to talk Buffalo Bills and their moves, more so keeping players or releasing players, but not really adding a lot. We'll talk a bit about that next. Your Rochester Press Box is coming up next.
Just passing through. Life lessons from notable Rochesterians. People you may think you know. Don Elhart, Maggie Brooks, John Dady, and Stacy Pension, J-Mac and Soccer Sam, Fred Costello, and Jake Zembeck, along with 21 more. How they all got from there to here. It's a new book by Bill Pucko, available for $12 postpaid only from rocksportsnow.com. Try it, and thank you. Our NFL pick segment in the Rochester Press Box, brought to you by Connors and Ferris, your trusted and dedicated workers' comp attorneys and official sponsor of the Buffalo Bills.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. This segment, the Bills segment, being brought to you by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. All right, Pat Duffy, there were some goodbyes. There were some, hey, you guys are sticking around. Not too many adding. Let's start with the goodbyes first. You kind of saw this coming.
Adding to the amazing luck that we have, literally 30 minutes after we finished taping the show last week, the Bills announced they cut everybody. Right? No, Poyer's gone. Mitch Morse is gone. Like, you have these guys. Tre'Davious White is gone. Yeah. It's heartbreaking to see. I mean, all three of those guys were warriors for this team. Poyer especially, right? Takes a bus to Kansas City because he can't fly because of a lung injury last year to play in a game. Poyer, I understand. Tre'Davious White, I understand. Mitch Morse, that was shocking.
Yeah.
That shocked me a little bit, but they must think that they have that center on the roster that's going to be able to replace him. Look, man, Bills fans are struggling with this so much, I believe, because they haven't had sustained success, this franchise, in a long time. And when a team is as good as the Bills have been for as long as they have, you have to turn the page. And part of turning the page is getting rid of guys that were heroes for you over and over again. Look, when, we let 90% of players walk that we did during the drought, you don't really care, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to fill the hole in your heart when those guys were the majority of the heart of this team.
Think about this, Bob. I was thinking about this last week in the sense that I know how much you love those players, and I know how much you hate to see it. But this is the business of the NFL right now.
Bingo. See, I think the problem in the front office in Buffalo is they're so close all the time. They've got to find a reason why they can't get over the goal line. I firmly believe that's what's happening. So when you start cleaning house and looking at your roster and trying to get younger possibly or take advantage of free agency and save some money in the salary cap, I think that's when you get into that vicious cycle. It's not like, remember the Steelers of the 70s, the Cowboys of the 80s. The Niners did that now. They kept jockeying, trying to get the best players for the short-term run, and they didn't make it.
Yeah.
So I'm fearful Buffalo's going to be doing that, chasing their tail.
Well, but I feel like in what they did, they're not doing that because you could have had Poyer for one more year knowing he was going to be there. You could have allowed Morse to stay there one more year knowing he's not going to be there down the run. In what I'm seeing here is the Bills abandoning a 1-2 year plan to focus on investing in younger players that they think not only are going to be cheaper, so you have more money to spend across the board, but are going to grow with your team. And I think an example of that is them re-signing A.J. Epinesa, right? A draft pick that they had the same year that they traded for Stephon Diggs. It's a great move. He had a breakout season. Tough. He got hurt towards the end of the year, right? But I see this as the team getting younger to stay relevant longer as opposed to 1 year, try it again, 1 year, try it again.
So you think Mitch Morse and Jordan Poyer's replacements are going to be young guys?
I do believe so. I mean, you're going to bring in a veteran.
I don't think so.
Well, okay. I could see them bringing in veterans to train guys that they're bringing in third, fourth, fifth round pick to eventually get to that spot.
Agreed.
But if I can pay a veteran safety half of what Poyer's scheduled to make and get maybe better results out of it,
Plug him in.
Exactly. Like, I love Jordan Poyer.
I do too.
His body started to break down last year.
Yeah.
And it hurts me to say, because the guy was a warrior.
I know.
But he, when you're getting beat on Hail Mary jump balls over and over and over again, maybe it's time to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Epinesa, of course, re-signed to Rap as well. Anything on Gabe Davis? I know for a while last week we were talking a little bit about him, knowing full well that he was going to be gone, but he got his money.
Yeah, he got his money. The Bills were not going to pay Gabe Davis $13 million a year minimum. Look, man, I hope he has success when he's not playing Buffalo, because Jacksonville with Mitch Morse and Gabe Davis come to Orchard Park this season.
Right.
Do you want to pay $13 million to a guy in Gabe Davis who hasn't been consistent? And I mean, it comes down to
He's the
consistency.
fourth guy, fourth receiver, fourth receiver.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
And is that worth $13 million? In my humble opinion, it is not.
That being said, the Jets maybe got Tyrod Taylor from the Giants. I mean, there's not. I mean, listen, from what we know now, I know once this recording is done, there'll be a whole bunch of different changes. But the Jets didn't get much better. New England didn't get much better. Miami got worse in losing defensive players.
Miami got worse. New England, I think, is the same. The Jets are banking on this season being successful with a 40-year-old quarterback coming back from blown Achilles, right? Oh, I'm sorry. He already recovered from it in the middle of the season.
And is running for re-election, I guess, in his own mind.
I've never wanted something more to happen in my life than being a vice presidential candidate. But that's a whole other thing.
I think he's already won in his own mind.
Yeah, right.
That's the Bill segment being brought to you by Connors Affairs, your workers' comp attorneys. Coming up next, Like It or Not.
Here's the Press Box Trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road.
Chills of the Finger Lakes. They're historic and they're beautiful, and you can tour them. I'm Mike O'Brien, your getaway guy, and I'll take you to them. Just look for the Getaway Guy right now on Facebook.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Welcome back to Rochester Press Box. Tariq Spence here with you. We go Like It or Not. And of course, I have to start with you, Bob. I want your thoughts on this. Players going to the Combine versus the Pro Day. Do you like it? I mean, where do you sort of stand on this? Do you like more Pro Days, more Combine?
Well, I think the Pro Days have always been there. I remember, and I'm just going to use my own personal experience here. I remember when I was at Richmond and we had our Pro Day. Most of the team was involved in Pro Day, even if they may not have been NFL prospects. I think that Pro Day determines exactly who should and shouldn't go to the Combine. So Pro Day to me was cake. When you get to the Combine, it's a different story. I remember the quarterback class I came out with was Testaverde and Harbaugh and Don Mikowski and Rich Gannon, and I'm at the Combine with all of these incredible large D1 athletes. Mm-hmm. It's more intimidating because they're names you're familiar with and know, and you're competing even harder with them for salary spots on the roster, draft choices, all that kind of stuff.
So you love the Pro Days. Do you think we're going to have more of these televised Pro Days? Would you rather see more televised Pro Days where you see guys playing in their own backyard?
You know where I stand. As much footage as I can get of guys in underpants running, I'll take it.
This again. I'm sorry. I didn't think he was going to do this 2 weeks ago.
I can't believe they're recording and going live with Pro Days.
But yeah, we were just talking about what we saw, man. Like, you're sitting here, I can't believe it, but we're talking about that 4.2540 from that kid from Texas. I mean, we watched it.
He is on the radar now. He's going to make a lot of money.
And he looks great in underpants.
Oh, my goodness. Either way, guys that wear fully clothed jerseys in the NHL. What is up with the obsession with Atlanta? The NHL wants to try for a third time?
I mean, look, it makes sense from the size of a market. Yeah, so for those who aren't, hockey historians, you had the Flames originally were in Atlanta in the 1970s. They now play in Calgary. Then they tried it again in the late 90s. They brought the Thrashers out. They became the Winnipeg Jets, which moved somewhere else. It's a whole thing. Yeah, I would think that 2 strikes, you're out. I understand that Atlanta is such a big market. You can argue it's the New York City of the South. You want to have a presence there. And you also have a bunch of Northerners that have been both in Canada, Pennsylvania, New York, hockey fans that have moved down to the South. You think you can help support it there. But you look at the struggles they've had in Miami with the Panthers. You look at the struggles they've had in Las Vegas with the Knights, right? Like, Southern hockey teams on the whole, if they are not successful, do not draw. I don't know why the NFL would want to try it, NHL would want to try it again. It might be because they're terrible at running their own league if you look at the history of the moves that they've made before. But look, I want hockey to succeed in Atlanta. I think it would make the league stronger. I think it would increase the visibility of the sport and have kids in a major city like that and surrounding areas playing, which is great, right? Like, for example, Austin Matthews, he's one of the best players in the NHL.
Right.
He grew up in Arizona, and he is a hockey player because the Coyotes moved to Arizona when he was a kid, and he watched that happen. That being said, they still can't draw out there, so I don't know what the heck they're thinking.
You ever think to yourself, brother, there's just too much expansion amongst, the NFL is expanding, we have to expand. Major League Baseball is expanding, we have to expand. Is there too much maybe in hockey because it's a regional area?
I'm just tired of all these new organizations coming up. And the history of hockey is the old school history of hockey, right? I mean, when you start adding all these new cities, I agree with what Pat says. It's impossible to fill all these arenas if you're not winning.
Just don't keep doing it in markets that you've crashed and burned in over and over again.
Yeah. Third time might not be a charm for Atlanta, but then again, the NHL really wants to make this happen.
Yeah.
Unfinished Business is coming up next. You're watching the Rochester Press Box. The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. Come home to McArdle's.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Unfinished Business is brought to you by Greg the Roofer. Better roof, better price. Better call Greg today. Save time and money on your roof and siding. Call us today for a free estimate. Special financing's available. Visit us online at gregtheroofer.com.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. Tariq Spence filling in for Bill Pucko. It's time for Unfinished Business, being brought to you by Greg the Roofer, and the man to fire off first is Pat Duffy.
Yeah, we just talked about Jordan Poyer earlier in the show, joining the Miami Dolphins. And here's the thing, man. We shouldn't hate Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer didn't choose to leave Buffalo. The Bills cut him loose. In fact, he chose to come back and play last year when he had opportunities to play other places. And like we said, the guy's been a warrior, leader in the locker room, one of the best defensive players on the field, and a guy you love to root for. But the fact of the matter is this. We're going to end up hating Jordan Poyer. Not only are you going to see him twice this season, he's playing for one of your most heated rivals, and he's a guy who, despite the fact that he may not have the physical attributes to do what he used to do, can make an impact on a game just based on his grit and emotional structure. He's going to say some things. He's going to hit somebody. He may even pick off a ball in the house he used to play, playing for a division rival. And you know how Dolphins fans get with the blah, 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 blah. Why? Why, Jordan? I mean, I get it. You're going to the place that's going to pay you the most. Maybe you want to play closer to home where you're from down in Florida. But why couldn't you go sign in Arizona or Green Bay or Minnesota where I don't have to see you? This smacks of Thurman Thomas in 99 signing with the Dolphins after he gets cut loose. Ryan Fitzpatrick playing for 2 seasons with the Jets. I just want to love you, Jordan. Why do you make me hate you so?
When is the term madness ever a good thing? Actually, it is now. This is the month of March, and there's a lot going on in the basketball world. Just last night, Wagner College, 15-15 record, won their conference tournament in the NEC and is going to the dance. A 15-15 team. Amazing. We have a huge affinity in our family for the basketball time of year. Although we are a football family, all of our kids play basketball. One of the things that's exciting is having some players that you're familiar with that are now playing on some major college teams. Look at Melvin Council. He played for Wagner. He was a participant in that win last night. They're going to the dance. J.J. Starling from Syracuse. He's a Syracuse superstar. How about Filipowski from Duke? All of these players I watch play in AAU. What an incredible tournament we're looking forward to. And I'm telling you what, take a few days off of work, skip some time, catch some games. The early games are most exciting. Squeeze for the underdogs, because that's what I do every year.
Oh, Duffy's got Jordan Poyer. I've got Saquon Barkley. Now, listen, this isn't going to be a bad Saquon Barkley moment, but it is going to be one of those in which Saquon Barkley provided as much as he could for the New York Giants while he was with that team drafted by the Giants. He took what was called the sports business deal, the best offer possible. The problem that I have, and most Giants have with it, it was with the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, the rivalry. The only thing that could have been worse was maybe the Dallas Cowboys. But at any rate, I'm not going to like it. I'll probably have my daughter videotape me every time the Eagles and the Giants play because I know Saquon Barkley, like Duffy said about Poyer, is one play away from busting the game totally open and will lead to a cussing tirade that the likes of no one has heard of in my life to know full well he could have done that in the Giants uniform. I wish Saquon Barkley the best. This is the sport business world, the business of sports. I know, back in the day when Tiki Barber played, you wouldn't do it. But it's a different game now. I respect Tiki and I love him. He was very critical of Saquon Barkley. But I understand both ends. It's the sports business world now. The rivalries and the way things used to be done are almost done. Thank you, everybody, for watching this week's edition of the Rochester Press Box. Bob, thank you for the time, man. I appreciate
Good
it.
stuff. I'll see you again.
Absolutely. And good luck to you on St. Patrick's Day. And we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. So,
Do you
the
do
promo?
something big for St. Patrick's Day?
We go downtown, or we get a hotel room like the whole family does, and we all hang out.
So you won't be really sober.